name is Hylak. I'm a student and researcher at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, double majoring in computer science and robot user experience design. I'm really excited to take the next 20 minutes and try to explain what exactly makes a robot collaborative and how we can make our own collaborative robots. So first of all, what is a collaborative robot? A collaborative robot is a robot that's designed to work with people. So it sort of follows that we have two main parts, the robot and the human. Alright, so robots come in all shapes and sizes. Some are small, some are big, some are soft, some are rigid. Some vacuum our floors, some weld cars, and some try to take over the world. Hopefully you get this reference. But in general, they're all programmed to do a task, and that makes their behavior pretty predictable. That also makes them somewhat easy to build. So there's a ton of robots here at Faire. And just a few months ago, I was volunteering at a FIRST competition, and I got to see kids like as young as 8 years old making robots. So it can't be too hard. Humans, on the other hand, don't have any predefined behavior, so they're neither predictable nor easy to build, and if you have any questions, you can ask your mom. It's not really the blood or the bones that makes them so hard to build. It's the brain. And there's all different types of things going on in the brain. So we have things like hope, fear, dreams, anger, jealousy, that make them very hard to collaborate with. And that's okay, but if a robot's going to collaborate with them, they have to take all this into account. So if you imagine you're in a room with a robot, and you ask the robot to open up the window for you. If the robot tries to open up the window and fails, that story ends there. The robot doesn't understand your intent behind opening up the window. You could be trying to escape out of the window. You could be trying to let smoke clear out of the room. The robot has no idea, so he can't help you. So again, the robot just says, I can't. So now, if you imagine you told the robot, I'm hot, could you try opening up the window? Now the robot understands what you're trying to do. So the robot can say, so the robot can get a fan or air conditioning from another room. This also now lets the robot disagree with you. If it's hotter outside than it is inside, opening up a window isn't going to help you achieve your goal. And before, the robot would have no way of knowing that. If it's hotter outside than it is inside and you're trying to escape out the window, it doesn't matter. So this really improves the collaboration. So I've made a few collaborative robots myself that I'm kind of going to briefly share with you. The first I made when I was in the 8th grade. I wanted to visit my grandma, but both my parents worked, and I wasn't able to get there as often as I wanted to. So I looked into existing solutions, and I found something called telepresence robots, which is pretty much just Skype or video chat on wheels. So it was great, but now I had two new problems. The first is that at the time, and this was 5 years ago, the cheapest telepresence robot on the market was $13,000. So I didn't have $13,000 then, and I still don't have it now. So this was a big problem. The second problem was a people problem, and you'll find that most of the time the people are the problem. But my grandma had to like it. If I couldn't visit my grandma with it, it wasn't going to solve my problem, no matter how cheap it was. So to try to solve these two problems that I had, I created Maya, Maya, which stands for Me and You Anywhere. So I made it for just $500, and if you're thinking the body of that the body of that robot looks a lot like a trash can, you'd be absolutely right, because it is. So I tried to make it for $500. I made it from a Roomba vacuum cleaner, laptop, trash can, and a bunch of other assorted and cheap parts. But now I still have to try to figure out whether or not it would work with senior citizens, and whether or not I could actually visit my grandmom with it. So I tested it with over 200 senior citizens from local nursing homes, and when asked to rate how positive their experience was, on a scale of 1 being a phone call and 10 being an actual visit, Maya got an 8.2. So there's another collaborative robot that I made called a Faire. And I skipped one part. I did very well with this robot. I won 5 blue ribbons here at Maker Faire when I came back. And I did get to go to the White House Science Fair, which was an awesome experience. So then I did make another I made another robot, which was an assisted living robot. I'll briefly play this video to kind of watch in the background. So this robot can take vitals like blood pressure, body temperature, blood oxygen, and it's fully autonomous, which from a collaboration standpoint makes it a lot more difficult. When you have a telepresence robot, you sort of have that person on the other side aiding with the collaboration. But you didn't have that here. So I'm going to kind of sprinkle in some lessons learned from the layer throughout the presentation. Oops. Okay, so enough about me. So back to the collaborative robot. We have 3 main parts. We have the human, the interaction, and the robot. So there's this theory called user-centered design. And user-centered design means that the person we're designing for should be at the center of our design. Our solution should adjust for them, not the other way around. And user-centered design has 3 main parts: planning, design, and prototype. So planning, we try to figure out a little bit about the people we're going to be making this solution for. Design, we try to figure out how our solution and our user should work together. And then prototype, where we actually make that solution to fulfill that design. So when we're using user-centered design for collaborative robots, it kind of actually fits pretty nicely. So we plan for the human, we try to understand them. We design that interaction. So what should that interaction between the human and the robot be like? And then we prototype. So we try to make a robot to fulfill that other side of the interaction after we understand what that interaction should be like. All right, so first of all, plan. And these tools actually come from a field called user experience, which is all about designing that experience for the user. Most of the time, and traditionally, it's for software, but it actually applies to robots as well. The first is called an empathy map. And an empathy map is used to understand each individual we're designing for. So maybe we'll survey around 30 people, something like that, and we try to understand for each person what makes them feel rewarded from the experience, what makes them feel like a negative experience, what are their goals for the interaction, what don't they want for the interaction, and kind of just what's going on inside their brain. I have a sample empathy map here. This is actually a perfectly fine template you could use for going to an interview with it. So like I said, we try to look at some of the tasks, how are they feeling, and like that. So like I said, you do that for each of the people you're interviewing. Then you come up with a persona. Now, where persona kind of comes from personality. So you look at all those empathy maps and try to find common characteristics in them. And you kind of group them based off these common characteristics, and then you assign them a name and a face that you can actually work with and reference throughout this design. This really helps with a team of people because you can make sure everyone's on the same page. Everyone understands who you're designing this solution for. Lastly, we have, so here are some of the personas I encountered while making a layer. The first is the persona of an elderly person that's not reporting their problems because they're afraid of losing their independence. My grandma definitely fits this persona. A few years ago, we just stopped in for a regular visit to visit my grandma, and she was just sitting there on the chair, out of breath and just sweating. And so we called the ambulance. She was rushed to the hospital. Her heartbeat was over 200 beats per minute. And throughout this whole process, they had to stop her heart twice. And she's still even recovering from these things today, and that's actually why I built a layer. But once she started to get recovery, we asked her, why didn't you call anyone? Her cell phone was right there, and she said she was afraid of losing her independence. She didn't want to end up in a nursing home, but she was living independently at the time. So this is a really, really tough thing to design for. The second persona is the persona of a senior citizen who's not reporting their problems. Who over-reports their problems. I first encountered this persona when I was walking through a nursing home, and I heard screaming. And I'm watching, nurses just walk by, And my grandma's in this facility, so I'm kind of worried. And I see my mom just walk by, and I'm like, my mom's a good person. I thought she was, before this. But she's just walking by, and I asked my mom, I said, why aren't you doing anything? And my mom had been visiting her every day for the past month, and every single day, this lady has just been screaming. No, she doesn't have any problems. She's just screaming to get attention. And this is a really tough thing to design for. Every single time they have a little scratch in their throat, they think they have bronchitis. They have a mole, they think they have cancer. So how do you design a robot for someone like that? And it's a common persona. And that was definitely a tough thing. You kind of have to put a buffer in between them, the robot and actually 911. And this third persona is a little less common, but it's the persona of the senior citizen that it can very accurately report the problems they're having. And they might even see the robot as an infringement on their independence. Even though it could be useful, it might not have a day-to-day use for it because they don't need someone to kind of intervene all the time. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier, we have scenarios. And scenarios put our personas, that thing we assigned a name and a face to, and we put them in the real world and try to evaluate how they're going to be interacting with that solution. We try to look at the good and bad and the ugly of that interaction. So we'll do a quick case study. I think it'll kind of wrap all these difficult concepts together. So we're going to imagine that we're making this toaster, and this toaster prints a different emoji or smiley face or frowny face on the toast, depending on your emotions or your mood that day. So if you're sad, it'll print a happy face, a frowny face, and if you're happy, it'll print a happy face. Okay, so we interview 30 people, and let's see, one of our empathy maps looks like this. So we find out this person has a lot of work to do, they're usually late, they're always in a hurry, and they have a short temper. We find out that a lot of the people, because our target audience is men going through their midlife crisis, so that's our target group, that's what we're designing for. So we found out that a lot of people actually have this type of empathy map. So we make this persona called the busy businessman persona. A lot of our target audience are these busy businessmen. Then we put them in a scenario. We imagine them waking up 10 minutes late for work. Their kids are screaming. They go to the coffee maker. The coffee maker's not working. Their tie is half undone. They have a presentation that morning. A lot going through their mind. All they want is a piece of toast. So they come up to our toaster and they try to put the toast in. And first, the toaster's insisting that they ask, "How are you doing today? How are you doing today?" You can kind of see that means the toaster probably wouldn't work, at least for our target audience, maybe not work at all. So we really have to look at who we're designing for. If, in the case of a busy businessman, they probably want the fastest toaster they can possibly have. So now we're going to talk about designing that interaction. So now we understand the person. Now we have to figure out how do they want to interact with our solution. So we call styles of an interaction initiative. So it's like who's taking the initiative in the interaction. Almost everything you interact with today is either user initiative or system initiative. There is a third type we'll get to a little later. So user initiative is where the user is communicating with the system through commands. The system doesn't understand the goal or intent of these commands. This is like the first example when we told the robot to open up the window, but we didn't tell them why we're opening up the window. This means the system can't possibly disagree or suggest alternatives, because once again, it doesn't understand the intent. This is like how you interact with a toaster, besides our new toaster. This is how you interact with a TV. If you can imagine, when you change the channel to channel 40, the TV just listens to you. It doesn't know why you sat down to watch channel 40. Perhaps you sat down and tried to get your mind off of breaking up with your girlfriend, and the TV can't warn you that the episode you're about to watch is all about the main character falling in love for the first time with this new girl, which could make you feel kind of bad. But the TV doesn't know your intent behind watching the TV, so it can't possibly warn you. Second is called system initiative. This is where the system is giving the user commands. The system's not explaining its decisions, and the user can't really disagree with these decisions. An example of this is like when you call tech support. Pretend that you had a tablet that is not working. So you call and you get press 1 for sales, press 2 for customer support. So you move through to customer support, and then you have press 1 for laptops, press 2 for mobile devices. You have a tablet, so you're not really sure what category that's fitting in. So you start screaming for the operator, and the automated phone prompts insisting that you press a number. You're eventually connected to an operator who, the first thing they tell you to do is restart your laptop. And maybe that is the solution to your problem, but if they're not going to explain to you why they asked you to restart your laptop, you can't possibly know whether or not that's actually helping you achieve your goal. And it's kind of frustrating. It's also like if you've ever been somewhere at work and you have a boss that's just giving you commands and not explaining why you're doing what you're doing. It's not just frustrating, it's really inefficient. You're only using one person's brain to make these decisions. So luckily we do have a third type of initiative, which is definitely less common, and it's called mixed initiative. Mixed initiative is how most humans hopefully are working together. So the system and the user are sharing a goal. The reasoning for their decisions are all shared with each other, and that means that both sides can suggest alternatives, both sides can disagree, and it's a really just healthy collaboration. And this is, again, how humans collaborate with each other. And this is like the second example of the robot in the room, and that's just how much more efficient it was. Now, in order for this to happen, in order for this mixed initiative to happen, you sort of need to be able to understand how the other person is feeling. Humans are perfectly good at this, most of them. So there's this thing called theory of minds. And theory of minds means being able to understand how someone else is feeling and what their goals are. Theory of mind is why you wouldn't walk up to a widow at a funeral and tell her her hair looks ugly. You might have never lost someone that's close to you, but you can understand why that would be wrong. Hopefully. But like I said, this is a fundamental social skill that's, for most people, acquired around 5 years old, but some people never acquire it. That's okay. But you can imagine how difficult this is for a robot, because theory of mind is based off of our own experiences, and also the experiences people tell us. But if a robot doesn't have any experiences, it's kind of a weird concept. So you might be wondering, how can a robot ever figure out how someone's feeling? Throughout my freshman orientation, the most repeated line was, if you don't know, ask. And in robotics, we have a very special word for this, and this is called interpersonal perception. And like I said, it literally just means ask. So first of all, for emotions, it's used for emotions. And you really only just need positive or negative. It's kind of a weird concept. You might think the robot would have to ask, are you angry, are you sad, are you jealous? Just use positive or negative. And we have to see this chart here, and it can build exactly what that complex emotion is based off the situation. So if you have a user who keeps failing and failing and failing at a task, and they report that they're feeling negative, they're probably not jealous. That doesn't really make much sense. They could be frustrated, right? That would make sense. That's how we would feel. If you have someone trying on a dress and it's way too small, not just a size off, but like many sizes off, they're probably not feeling disgust or panic or anger. They're probably feeling shame or embarrassment. It kind of makes a lot more sense. So we can kind of get in that mind of the person we're designing for. Right, so one of the theories that I worked on over the summer was called effective motivational collaboration theory. It's really fancy, but it's just a theory that kind of outlines how humans and robots should be collaborating. And in this theory, the robot uses coping mechanisms to help work with the human's emotions throughout the collaboration. An example of this is like that example where we said the person's getting frustrated after repeated failure. In that case, the robot would say, okay, let's do an easier task you can succeed at, kind of build up your confidence a little bit, and then come back to it with a fresh point of view. It kind of lets you just start with a clean slate, and it really increases the efficiency of the collaboration. Another thing it can be used for is task hierarchy. Robots suck at big picture thinking. So another one of the things I worked on over the summer was trying to teach a robot a hierarchy of tasks, like putting a tire on a car, switching tires. And it's very difficult. So what we did is give them the big picture. right off the bat. So if you imagine making a cup of tea, right? So we have making the tea is our highest level task. We have 3 subtasks, which are boiling water, making a pot of tea, and pouring the tea. Underneath these, we have subtasks, and some of these subtasks have their own subtasks. And if you don't give the robot this big picture ahead of time, the robot doesn't know that you're transitioning from turning off the stove to warming the pot. It doesn't know how to distinguish these two things. It just lumps it all into one. So if you just straight off the bat explain the hierarchy to the robot, it'll be a lot more efficient. So now we're making the robot. We're talking about all these big words here kind of floating around, and I promised you I would tell you how to make one of these. And at this point, it's kind of pointing towards artificial intelligence as being the only solution. But it's actually very, very easy, believe it or not. So fake it till you make it is kind of the best way to explain how to do this. So first of all, we don't need artificial intelligence in order to handle emotions. The user just needs to feel like the robot understands their emotions. And compared to a command-based structure, it's just a few extra if statements. So imagine that we're making this drink-fetching robot. So you might imagine something like, get me a beer, and the robot would just say, yes, master, right? And that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind for this drink-fetching robot. Now imagine that we did it in the style of mixed initiative. It would look something like this. I'm thirsty. The robot would say, I can help. It's a Thursday night. Maybe something non-alcoholic, hopefully. And then the person buys maybe a soda. That's what they're feeling like. Now, the robot can pull in some data from their Fitbit. And this, in order to make this mixed initiative possible, you just need more information, right? So we can find out a little bit about the schedule in the previous example. This time we're going to pull some data from their Fitbit or whatever. Find out that they exercised above average this week, and they've actually earned themselves a soda. So we can say, it's not the healthiest choice, but you earned one this week. And the robot and the person can say, you're right, I'll take the soda. So the robot doesn't need to have any more inherent intelligence. It just needs more information about the situation that it's in. I encountered a similar situation when I built a lair. So basically, in order to take vitals, I would just have the person say, check my blood glucose level. And the robot would reply, okay. What I realized is that this requires a very high level of self-diagnosis, right? People don't just want their blood glucose level taken out of the blue. They have a problem. So the robot has the capability to have more information about their medical situation. So instead, let's just say, my chest hurts. Can you check my blood glucose level? Now you understand that doesn't, in some regard, it doesn't make any sense. It could be a very, very serious problem with their heart. So it could be their blood glucose, maybe. So let's check their heart first to make sure they're not having a heart attack. So we say, let's try taking your pulse first. Then we find out they are having a heart attack. So now we can actually call 911. And if we didn't do this, if we just took their blood glucose and called it a day, we would have never found out they're having a heart attack. So that's why this collaborative idea is so, so important. So just to kind of recap about what we talked about today, first of all, we're going to plan. Right? We're going to try to identify first our target audience and then understand them. We're going to imagine how they'd interact with our robot. Next, we're going to design the interaction between the robot and the person. And this is in the style of mixed initiative, like we talked about earlier. And this is how humans collaborate. You want to make it feel natural for them. Lastly, we're going to prototype. And when we're building this robot, we're going to try to get as much information about the context of this interaction as we can. Try to figure out who they are without trying to just deduce this, right, through artificial intelligence. You can just get this information, especially as the world becomes more and more connected. So goals, not commands. You can really reformat a command-based structure very easily into goals. And lastly, fake it till you make it. Like I said, and this is done all the time in research. If there's a specific part of this interaction you can achieve, as long as you can make the person feel like the robot actually understands them, feels like they're considering the same goal, you've achieved what you're looking for. Lastly, I did skip a part of user-centered design, and that's testing. And this is really where you're going to learn the most about how to design for people. This is where I learned the most about how to design for people. And if you're designing something for people, make sure it works with people, I guess, is kind of the point. And if you have any questions, we have like a few minutes here. And otherwise, you can email me. And you can look at my site for some of the stuff I've done. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Anything? Cool.